Hey everyone, it's Joric. Welcome back. I hope you're doing great wherever you are in the world. Today I wanted to talk about the selling experience of selling our property in Portugal. So for those of you that may be looking to sell property down the road, you got a place and you're going to sell it, or you have some investments and you're going to sell those property pieces. I just want to go through our experience to let you know, and for others, just general information of how it worked for us, and just in talking to our real estate agent and other people who have bought and sold property, how it worked for them. So you have some idea of what you're getting into, good, bad, or otherwise. So first things first is coming up with the sales price. What do you sell your property for? Now in Portugal, for example, in the United States, there's something called an MLS system where you're able to look at comps or comparable sales prices for property in your area. What my recommendation is, since that doesn't exist in Portugal, is to go on Idealista or Caso Sapo, or some agency sites like Remax or Century 21 or Keller Williams, and type in the size of your property. So total size, then livable size. Those are going to be two different numbers. Maybe amenities. Does it have air conditioning? Does it have an elevator or a lift? If it's out in a rural area, what type of, is it a farm? Do you have property with other buildings on it? What type of a house might you have? And then you can look from there and just see what people are asking for prices. We've gone on that and we've tried to use that as our template for coming up with comps or comparable pricing. So when we were looking at things in our area of Lisbon, that's how we determined the price. Now we end up dropping the price a little bit because we were also finding that some of the properties that were listed at the price point that we thought was a good price point weren't getting sold. So we dropped it a little bit in order to be able to finally get a buyer and go through the process. Now, along with coming up with the sales price, that's the first thing. Second thing is coming up with listing. Where do you list it? So if you're working with an agency, that agency will have a website and it'll be on that site. And usually within a few days, it will also pop up on aggregate sites like Caso Sapo. Idealista is usually the main site that most people go to. And when you're looking for, as people are looking for stuff, you're looking to see what other people are selling similar properties for. Those are the main sites, the Idealista, Caso Sapo, and then the individual real estate sites, the agency sites. You can also, Facebook has a lot of sites. We put our apartment for sale in, I think, 7 different Facebook groups about property in Portugal. And so there's a number of ways that you can get it out on social media. There's areas, Reddit. You can even put it on Twitter, Instagram, and let people know that way that you have a property for sale or properties for sale. A question that comes up often is people think that if it's a high price point in Portugal, which our apartment was not, who buys? Who are the buyers? Is it all foreigners or all foreign investors? The answer is everybody, because we had several people go through our property. I would say 8 or 9 people that looked at it were Portuguese. So they were either Portuguese or Portuguese investors. So they were looking for a place to move to, or looking for a place to be able to invest and be able to rent out or do something else with it. And then the other 50% was expats or foreigners. It just happened to be a couple that had been living in Portugal for a few years, lived a couple blocks away, that happened to find the property, did a tour, and really enjoyed it. They were actually picking up some furniture from us that we were selling, and then they wanted to look at the place, and we kind of helped get them to our real estate agent to be able to facilitate a conversation, to be able to make an offer, and they made an offer, which was great. So who buys? Everyone buys. Don't have a misconception that it's only certain people. Everybody looked at our property, and I think everybody is looking from all over the world. There are many people that are still looking at Portugal to buy. So a couple of different components when buying. Let's talk about if it's just cash offer versus financing. If it's cash, it can be closed in a matter of days. Now, we've talked to two people that have multiple properties. They're Portuguese. They have multiple properties in Portugal, and they've been doing property investment, real estate investment for over 20 years. And they said in some cases there was an offer on Monday, and by Friday of that week, all of the paperwork was done. The money was transferred. The keys were exchanged. All the I's dotted, T's crossed, and it was done as quickly as that. So it can be just a matter of days if it's cash. We did have a cash offer on our property, but it fell through. The person actually didn't have the money that they said they did. So cash is king, of course. It's a way to go if you want to be able to get something done quickly. But again, you got to have somebody. You got to probably have a property that's priced appropriately to where you're going to get a cash offer, accept it, and move forward and close your deal. And then the other part is financing, which is becoming more prevalent. Not as many people can just buy something outright. You got to finance it. That's what we did when we bought the property in Portugal. And the couple that's buying our property, same thing. So there's several things. You have the promissory note, you have the contract that you have to review and make sure that everything is in there that you want. They have everything in there that they want. They're working on their financing as we speak, so that should be in order. So just in a matter of days, probably 1 or 2 days after publishing this video, they're going to have that done to where we can assess the formal contract, take a day or two to review that. Once we agree, then they're going to send a down payment. A little bit different. There isn't necessarily an escrow system in Portugal, and I don't know how many countries have an escrow system, so I apologize. I'm just using the U.S. as a basis. But they'll send the down payment directly to us. They're going to direct deposit it into our Portuguese or Millennium bank account in Lisbon. And then closing, generally, our experience, gosh, it was 6 months. And it was because of some paperwork issues at the bank. Just took us a while to finally close. But in this case, from the time that we started the process to close, it's generally 60 to 90 days. And I've talked to several banks, Santander, Bankinder, Millennium, a lending bank called UCI, who we've used. And on average, it's 2 to 3 months to close. They said if it's Portuguese, within Portugal, the Portuguese transfer, everybody's in country, so it generally doesn't take that long. It can be 30 to 45 days. But if you are outside the country, so you haven't come in yet, and you have to come in for closing, let's say you don't have a power of an attorney, it can take a little longer because you have to get plane tickets and figure out a date to close. That is also one thing that I want to bring up too that I didn't bring on these slides, that for those of you that are outside of Portugal, maybe you went there, you found the property that you love, and you're going through the process, you can do much of the process remotely. You can hire a power of attorney to represent you at the close. You can also hire that person if you choose to take the deposit, the money that you get at the close, and deposit in your bank. So that's something that we're doing because the close, we just moved back to the U.S. and getting new jobs, we don't have the ability with time off to get on a flight right away and to go back. So we are having someone help facilitate. So she will represent us at the close and take that final money and deposit it in our bank. But it's a pretty straightforward process to sell property in Portugal. I'll be honest, I haven't seen any gotchas. I will say, throwing in there, the bank will do an appraisal of the property. I've been told by many banks that they kind of do an eye roll when I say, so how in depth is the appraisal? And they kind of, the nudge, nudge, wink, wink. They said it's very rare that they would say no to an appraisal, and it would be as if the property was really worth 200,000 and it's being sold for €1,000,000, that type of situation, which is rare that they would say no to something. I will say that with property, there aren't inspections. So specific to those of you from the United States, you're used to a home inspection. As we're closing on a property here in Phoenix, Arizona, there's an inspection and the process has already happened, so we know what might need to be fixed or negotiated in the price or what we're going to live with once we buy the property. That doesn't happen. So for those of you that are used to an inspection or want one, you can always hire a contractor in Portugal to go do a review of the property, I would have. Now, here's the thing: if you're going to do that, I would make the effort to be in Portugal to walk around with that person. To, if it's a farm, to look at what the opportunities are, where the wells are, where some of the septic is, and the electrical. Whether you're in an apartment in Lisbon like us, like a more urban center, I would also have them. I want to be with them to see as they're checking plumbing, electrical, structure. If you're in an apartment building, also looking at the common areas. So not just your building, because if you're buying, or excuse me, not just your apartment, you're not just buying your apartment, but also you have an investment in the building itself, making sure it's got a good roof, the structure itself is in decent shape. So you can also hire those people. But the process is, I think, pretty straightforward. It's not that complicated. I think, you just have to be mindful of the process. If you can be in Portugal for that, as much of that process as possible, that's optimal. If you can't, then you have to rely. We have a good friend who's an attorney that we trust, so she can be our power of attorney. She helped us obtain our property and go through some of the hoops, helping us get our bank account back in 2018. So we have a good rapport there. I wouldn't just hire anybody willy-nilly without knowing them. We know her. But if you can't do that, then you have to be present. And that's really the best way to go. That way you can follow along through all of the steps here to make sure when you're selling the property, you have to be on top of it, I think, a little more than you might in other countries as far as mindful management of what's going on here selling. But I hope this helps. If you're looking to sell a property, it's the basics of selling it and how the process works. It's not that complicated. It just can be time consuming unless it's a cash deal, which it can be done in days. As always, thanks for watching and enjoy your travels.